Okay, so we are up to chapter 14, which means we are getting close to the end of our book. We've been doing some pretty good progress lately, and we are back on the defensive side of things to talk about lead signaling and discards. So if you haven't seen us before, which, we've been doing this for a while now, so maybe you have, we're talking about Iggy sent me a vid of him doing a Valentine's heart. Shoot, I wish I had seen that before we got started. I would have brought it up on stream. I don't check my email enough. But we've been working through the book Card Playing Technique or The Art of Being Lucky. Now that we're kind of in the back half of the book, we're only doing one chapter a week, so you got lots of time to read. And then we do discussion based on Discord. So this chapter was really interesting because oh yeah, you can't see anything with my head in the way. Give me a second. Let's fix that. My head can hide over here for a few seconds. So this chapter was interesting. It talked about a few things that I hadn't seen before. In fact, it kind of started off talking about like this rule that everybody has heard of and giving counterexamples to the rule. We're going to talk about that in a second. And then it moved on to talk about another concept that I'm not too sure that whether or not people use this still or not. So like this is very, very different. There's like a lot that I'm not sure. Like this is like one of the drawbacks of like a book that is discussing bidding that is about 50 years old. But we started off talking about what do you do when your partner has doubled the opponent's contract. And this is an interesting one because at this point you're expecting to be able to take down the opponent's contract. So your lead is generally like informed by a few things that's happened during the bidding. Usually you have like a little bit of a sense of what you're supposed to do. And generally the idea is you're going to be leading one of the suits that you or your partner bid. And if you don't have a suit that you or your partner have bid, then you want to be leading from like a good holding that you have. Or, and this is where that rule that I mentioned earlier came into play. They talked about how if you're going to be in a no trump contract, if neither you nor your partner said anything during the bidding and you don't have any sense of what to do, and your partner doubled, that's a good sense that you should be doubling whatever was suit the dummy bid. Maybe partner has a good holding there and they want you to lead towards it. I've never heard this rule before, but they like spent a number of pages talking about it. Yeah, it seems like a good rule of thumb. Like if you can think about like your partner like didn't have anything that they could say during the bidding process, but they felt they had enough strength in something that they wanted to double that no trump contract, and it makes sense that they're looking for you to maybe lead through a suit that the opponents have bid early. So the next thing that the book went on to talk about was something called trump control signals, which somebody mentioned earlier. They're not entirely sure if this is something people do or not anymore. And I'm not sure either, so I didn't even put it on the slide. But the idea with the trump control signals was that you invert your count signaling in the trump suit. And that shows partner that you have a stop in the trump suit and also interest in roughing something. So I don't know. I didn't even put any examples in of this because I'm not entirely sure if this is something that people do or not. But I am. It seems like it's potentially useful in some cases to give partner like they can know what the count is on the trump suit accurately. They can get a sense that you're interested in actually doing some. They can get an interest. They know that you're looking for a rough somewhere, so they know that they should be looking for shortness in some other suit. They should be making a switch some way. And then they show a couple of example hands where like it becomes really important for you to be able to tell partner whether or not you have 3 trumps or 2 trumps. So I kind of left it off of here, but because I'm not sure if this is something that like people still play or not, but it did seem pretty interesting. And then another type of signal that you can do is suit preference. And again, this is one that I don't know if I felt like the explanation of the way the suit preference was discussed here was like the best. I don't know if that's the best presentation of suit preference. But I do agree with a lot of what it said, which is that it's very useful, but also very easy to confuse. So suit preference is like kind of the least important signal. if you what your preferences let's see uh, uh, your preference when you're giving a signal to a partner is to give them attitude or count. But if you're giving a signal in a situation where it doesn't make sense for you to get attitude, it doesn't make sense for you to be giving count, if you do something like play an unnecessarily high card or an unnecessarily low card, you can use that to show preference for a higher ranking or lower ranking suit. One place where this is really useful and like where you can give suit preference like very easily is on the very first time you do a discard in a hand. So like when you can't follow suit for the first time. If you play something called Laventhal discard, you show suit preference on that by playing a low card to show like the lower ranking suit and a higher card to show the higher ranking suit. So I think that one's pretty useful. It's like a very clear case that's very hard to it's very hard to not understand what's happening with that signal. But there are some downsides to giving suit preference, which is sometimes like you can't afford to give suit preference. You need those cards for holding on to it. So Brad's chiming in with the trump control signal. So I don't I'm giving a rough signal, as normally I can either win a trump and try to get partner in to get a rough, or they can draw trumps and I'm closing the barn door after the horse is bolted. Fair enough. Yeah, it seemed like what I was hearing from other people is that there's just like much more useful things that you can do with like if you're gonna be giving a signal in trump, then or try to do something that than showing that like you have a stopper and are trying to get a rough. So that like it does seem like that was one of like the aspects of this chapter that are maybe a little bit outdated. And then something you should always be aware of when you're giving your signals is that a good declarer is going to be watching your signals just as much as your partner is. And every time that you give a signal, like you're giving information to the entire table. You're letting the declarer see that just as much as your partner can. And if your partner can't actually do anything with the signal that you're giving them, then really you're just signaling to the declarer. And that's not any good. You can potentially give them information that they're not entitled to have. You can make their guess easy. And it's up to them whether or not they want to rely on your count signals, if they want to rely on the signals that you're giving to your partner. But this is a really good sense of like, it's not always right to try and signal on every hand at every possibility. There are times when it's right for you to just lay back because there's really nothing else that your partner could benefit from. I kind of mentioned this already with like maybe some of the downsides of the suit preferences, that like sometimes when you have like cards like 9 or the 8 and they're topped off by like Queen Jack 9 8 or something like that, those like 9s and those 8s can become very important cards. Even 7s and 6s can become important cards. If you have length in a suit, using that suit as signals becomes really it's really fraught. Like there's a lot of issues potentially with it. And so instead of giving like a suit preference signal, sometimes like what you might end up doing is giving like negative attitude signals instead. Saying like, I don't like this suit, and then being like, I don't like this other suit as well. And that leaves partner to figure out that like, okay, well, they don't like those two suits, and then like we're talking about this other one, so it has to be like this fourth suit is the one that they want me to go to. And that can be a way for you to make sure that you're not using up your winners when you need to preserve them to actually take tricks. And then the last one is something that we've kind of mentioned a few times in the past few chapters, and it's just so hard to do. But think about what the declarer's plan is on the hand. You can imagine like, we can imagine like, why are they playing the hand in this way? If they had this card, if they had the king to go with that ace that I can see in dummy, then they would just be playing that suit to get their and they'd be able to make it. So we can tell the partner has to have this other card, and that they're trying to develop this other suit instead because they have holes here. And you can use that to try and help plan your defense. You can use that to plan your discards. You can use that to figure out what cards you need to be holding on to, which suits you need to protect. And then ultimately you can figure out what suits you need to be unblocking, and when it's safe for you to go ahead and stop guarding a particular suit. Because maybe there's no way for the contract to be defeated except if your partner has to have a certain card. So there's I do think that like, this is like, it's a great rule, it's a great thing to like keep in mind, but it's also such a hard thing to put into practice. So, you know, I threw it on there, but it's like kind of one of those like, yeah, okay, kind of thoughts for me, at least at this moment. Maybe in a year or so I'll feel a lot better with like my bridge memory. Okay, let's take a look at some examples. So I've doubled up on the examples on this first one, and let me move my head again. I should be out of the way for the rest of these. Okay, so on the first one, this is kind of the examples that we were talking about at the beginning. Neither you nor your partner have said a word during the bidding, but your partner still is looking at that 3 no trump contract, and they're totally willing to throw out that double. And so what we need to try and figure out here is what we should be leading. And I'm not even going to show you a hand on this first one. And the reason for that is, so we're sitting here in West. And so we've got South sitting there with 3 no. North is sitting there presumably with a stack of diamonds, 5, maybe 6. And they're in 3 no. And like this old adage that I had mentioned that I had never heard of before reading this chapter says that when partner doubles in this situation, in this 3 no trump contract, a good lead is often what the dummy is bid. But here, when dummy is shown 5 or 6 cards in this suit, there's pretty much no reason why we would want to lead the diamond suit. The only thing that we are doing there is helping the declare establish their long suit. So in this situation, given that the opponents have bid diamonds and spades, it's probably right for you to just go ahead and lead a club or a heart. There's essentially 0 hands that could exist where you would actually want to lead a diamond on this auction. But let's take a look at another auction where our partners managed to chime in on 3 no trump again. And let's look at a specific hand here. So North has shown up with 1 diamond, South says 1 heart, North says 1 spade, and South invites with 2 no, and North is like, let's go for it. And here partner's gone ahead and doubled, and we have to think like, what could partner be holding at this point? What would be a good thing for us to do? Well, that old adage, let's turn back to it. We're saying like, maybe we should be thinking about leading something that the opponents have bid. Leading something that the dummy has bid. That's probably why partners, like, they're sitting over top of something good. They want us to lead through that dummy position, potentially in some suit. So let's see. North bid 1 spade over the 1 heart, showing at least 4 spades. And then South did not agree to play in spades. They didn't want to do that. So we know that South, between North and South, they only have maybe 7 spades. And then I'm looking at 2 to go with their 7. That leaves 4 spades for partner. If partner had 5 spades, they probably would have said something. They had a chance to bid 1 spade, and they passed up that opportunity. So we have a good sense that the spades are probably split 4-4-3-2. And our 10-9 actually looks kind of appealing. We can lead towards probably strength for partner. Hopefully we can lead through anything that the dummy has. And we can set up a good number of tricks in the spade suit here. The other thing that we might consider leading would be kind of that club position. But Queen 7-5 is not exactly inspiring. This is, and partner is doubling for a reason. So it feels like maybe we can do something by leading the 10 of spades here. Okay, let's take a look at another example. So I'm not going to show you the auction on this one, but we're playing against a 6 diamond contract, and our partner has gone ahead and led off the ace of spades. And we're pretty excited at this point because we can see that the ace of spades is hopefully going to cash for, and then we need to make sure that we can get partner to lead towards our lead a heart, and we'll go ahead and be able to set this contract immediately. This is an excellent opportunity to give a suit preference signal. And this is one of the big opportunities that show up when you can see that they're like, when dummy has a singleton and partner leads an honor from that suit. We know that we're either going to, like, if that suit gets led again, then we'd be giving the opponent a rough. So we know that there's likely going to be a switch that comes after this after the lead. This is one of the great opportunities that comes up pretty frequently where you can actually give suit preference very unambiguously. So here, we want to make sure that we can tell partner we want the hearts to be led. And so since we know that they're not interested in trump, we know they're not interested in diamonds because that's trump, we know they're not interested in spade because that's the thing that we're trying to switch out of, so that leaves just clubs and hearts. So if we play a high spade to partner's ace, then we tell them that we want a heart, and if we play a low spade to partner's ace, we tell them we want a club. So we're going to play very high here. We throw off that jack of spades, and partner hopefully reads that correctly as suit preference and leads us that heart that we asked for, and we get to go ahead and take our ruff and set the contract. Okay, we've got 2 more problems and we'll be wrapping it up for the day. Hey Maria, hey Dr. Dogman, good to see both of you. We are just finishing up with discussion. I think I think maybe we got started a little bit earlier today than we normally do. But we got 2 problems left. So hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about them. So we are sitting in this east seat, and we chimed in pretty early on with a very nice preempt, looking at that 7-card spade suit of 4 spades. We got a void, we got a side ace. Feels pretty good. South chimes in with 5 diamonds, and North says, let's go for it. And I mean, to be fair, North is looking at a really nice hand. Our partner, sitting west, has gone ahead and led off the ace of spades. So this is essentially the same question that we just looked at. How can we make sure that we're going to get partner to lead towards our void on the next one? So I'll give everybody just a few seconds to think about this one, and then we'll move on to the next. Oh yes, I'm sorry. Yes, we want partner to lead towards our clubs. I just 100% misspoke. Yeah, we don't want them to lead towards our diamond void because that's the trump suit. Leading towards our diamond void is not going to do us any good at all. What we need to do is figure out how to get them to lead towards our ace. How do we get them to lead towards our club? Yeah, I said it wrong. I described the problem 100% incorrectly. So they led off the ace of spades, and we need to tell them that they need to switch over to clubs. We know that they probably don't want to lead back spades again. They know that we are sitting on like 8 or maybe 7 of them. So we know that they're going to make a switch at this point. It's not safe for them to go ahead and lead spades twice. Partner probably has a very good sense of exactly what that is because they have to be sitting on 3 spades. So this is a great chance for us to go ahead and tell partner which of those other 2 suits besides spades and diamonds we're interested in. We're interested in the clubs. So if we play a low spade here, then we tell partner that we're interested in the lower of those 2 ranking suits, and that would be the clubs. Hopefully they lead towards our ace, and we get to do it here. Nook is saying that we should play the jack, that he would play the jack, and then there's a question here of whether or not people would actually interpret this as suit preference or attitude. So Nook's not really able to hear the discussion because he's in a meeting, but I'm very interested to hear exactly like what the jack would show in this situation. So jack feels like an interesting choice, and I'm not entirely sure why. So I'm gonna just try and write that in chat. Partners should know pretty much exactly what cards we have. And we've got some votes for people saying that some of the examples that we see in the book of suit preference should probably be discussed with partner. And I agree with that. Suit preference is one of the signals that's the least clear. It's the one that you're going to have the least opportunity to use outside of maybe Laventhal discards. And it's one of the ones that's that it's very easy to confuse. So I do think suit preference is one of those ones that needs to be used with caution. There's and it seems like it's very easy to make a mistake with it. But hopefully with this one, like we have we know the partner knows that we have a ton of cards in spades. So by playing the 2, we're playing something that's like very, very low. And like, why are we playing such a low card instead of something like just in the middle? Okay. So in contrast to exactly what I just said, BZ is saying that the 2 might be interpreted as don't care or just following the lowest. By playing the jack to partner's ace, we're going to make them sit up and take notice. We're trying to tell them something. I do think that makes a lot of sense. We want to, in all cases, be giving partner the clearest signal that we can. And by playing the 2, we might actually confuse partner. And I think that's kind of what Dr. Dogman is getting at as well, which is like, would you actually interpret the 2 as a suit preference signal or just discouraging / encouraging in spades, depending on what your attitude system is. So Noka said, yeah, king would be play a heart, queen would be rude, jack would be hopefully spade low. Wants to not play the 2 because there's some argument that partner should try to cash the 2 spades. There's some argument that partner might try to cash 2 spades, yeah. Okay. Oh, and especially if Brad's partner, if Nook's opener, 4 spade openers don't actually guarantee at least 7 spades. And okay, so this is interesting that like they're actually like, if you and your partnership like have discussed this a whole lot, you can actually have a very firm agreement saying like king would be something like play a high spade, whereas the queen would be like play a low spade, and jack says play a club, I think. I was thinking that the way that they talked about McKinney signals might be outdated. I think a lot of the material that was discussed in this chapter is a little outdated, and I am not sure how much of it should be taken at face value. So I left parts of this chapter out of the discussion for that exact reason. And maybe this is a good example of that too, but this seemed in line with what like how other resources were presenting suit preference, so I felt like it was reasonable enough. But yeah, I do think that this is one of the, like, this chapter and the chapter on like reading hands and things like that have definitely suffered a little bit because they rely so much on interpreting bidding and less on actually card play. Okay, let's do one more example. Even a discouraging attitude is probably good enough. Yeah, because why would they lead towards that heart suit and dummy? Yeah. Yeah, I think that makes sense here too. That's a very good point, Dr. Dogman. Okay, let's take a look at this one. So we are sitting west. Oh, sorry, let's go back. It doesn't look like that. They might think that they could give us a heart ruff. When getting a ruff, queen and 10 are high, jack and 9 are low. There we go. That's the rule I was looking for. Got it. Yeah, like, this feels like a place where there's going to be a switch that happens. And if you know that a switch is going to happen, that's a good time to give suit preference. Okay, Let's take a look at this one. So we're going to be sitting west here. The north started off the bidding with one club. South chimes in with one diamond. We overcall one spade, and South says, enough of that, we're playing 3-0, and everybody passes. No doubles here. We start off by leading our king of spades, which looks pretty good because we've got 5 of them, and they're king, queen, jack, 10. That holds for 1 round, and then we play the queen, and South takes it with the ace. And then South goes ahead and plays 6 rounds of diamonds. So we've got to make 4 discards along the way. What discards should we be making from our hand? Let's think about it. Give everybody 30 to 45 seconds here. Sorry, give me 1 second. I'm trying to find something. And then we will talk about that. 3 rounds of hearts and then a club. Yeah, I think we're thinking along the right lines. Great. So we've got some comments flooding in. So 3 rounds of hearts seem like a pretty obvious first choice for our first 3, and that seems pretty reasonable. Those hearts are doing absolutely no good there. And so it comes down to whether or not we can discard a spade safely, or whether or not we can discard a club safely. If South has so the big realization that we have to the big thing that we have to realize here is that after 6 diamonds, the ace of spades, and the ace of clubs that we can see on the table, that's 8 tricks. If South also has the king of clubs, that's 9, and it doesn't matter what we do. They're going to make their tricks. We have to assume that partner has the king of clubs. And because we have to assume that partner has the king of clubs, the only way that we're going to be able to set this contract is if we can take all of those spades that are left, the jack, the 10, and the 6, and turn them into winners. So it makes sense for us to go ahead and discard a club here. We have to assume that partner has the yes, okay. The other thing that I left out of that discussion that people are bringing up here is the same has to go for the ace of hearts. If the opponents had the ace of hearts as well, again, they just go ahead and take their 2 heart tricks in addition to the rest of the stuff they have, and their contract is set. There's nothing that we can do if South has the ace of hearts or the king of clubs. So we have to assume that partner has those cards in order to be able to set the contract. Partner probably has the last spade, otherwise South would have ducked twice. Yeah, this is a good, so BZ is bringing up a good point here as well. If the declarer only had, wait. Partner probably has the last spade, otherwise South would have ducked twice. Isn't it the other way? Um, if South like I think South has to have all three spades. South had to have three spades. Because if they only had two spades, they would have ducked twice. Wait. They couldn't duck twice if they had two spades, because if they only had ace something. I think we have to assume that South has another spade. Or no, we need partner to be able to lead the spade to us. I'm sorry. I think this is a point where it's like I'm getting a little bit confused. Yeah, if South only has two spades, then they can only duck once. And if they have three spades, then it says that they only duck once. So it's a little ambiguous here, but we kind of have to just hope that we're going to be able to get in somehow. That partner is going to be able to lead towards hopefully like either a club that we get to establish like once we discard the club, or we get to lead to a spade. We kind of have to hope for something in order to be able to set the contract. But the big thing that we have to recognize is that there's no hope to set the contract if partner doesn't have the ace of hearts or the king of clubs. And that king of clubs is the really important one because that tells us it's safe for us to discard a club. This is an interesting comment. So Nook is saying you should pitch your hearts low to high to show that you have a possible club entry. Okay. Okay, that's interesting. I'm gonna have to think about that one. Because we, like, the reason that it's safe for us to discard clubs is that we need to make sure that partner isn't going to discard down to a bare ace of, a bare king of clubs. Even if partner discards down to, like, bare king, the queen jack is still gonna turn a trick. So it still makes sense to discard the club. Okay. Yeah, this is an interesting one about like how can you give partner, how can you signal like along the way that you're doing your discards. And depending on like what you're doing, like maybe like you're playing Laventhal, so it might be very easy for you to I don't know, actually, like if you're playing Laventhal discards and you need to come up like with your discard, if you play the 8 of heart, if you discard the 8 of hearts, you would be showing preference towards the spades, but partner already knows that you want spades. So there's not really a whole point to that signal. We need to try and signal something else to tell partner something different. So yeah, I'm not too sure here. This is an interesting one where like if you just like, or if you're not careful, you could end up like where like your signals can be a little ambiguous. Playing Laventhal, the 8 would deny club interest because it's an empty signal. Okay, so that's something that I didn't know about this. That's helpful. So if it's it would be an empty signal, then that denies club interest. So here, do we want to deny club interest? Like, because we need partner to hold on to their clubs. And if I deny club interest, then that tells partner that it's all right for them to discard all of them. That seems bad. So we probably want to discard the 2. We probably want to discard the 2 of hearts first to show partner that we want that they need to hold on to the clubs. Does that make sense? That's an interesting one. Um, so you can see that like there's been like pretty good discussion today about how these sorry, excuse me. About some nuances around these signals and how they've kind of evolved in meaning and changing over time. So like I do think as like we've mentioned a couple of times before, like these are good things to discuss with partnerships, especially established partnerships. And it's probably not a great idea to rely blindly on these in a partnership where you haven't discussed stuff like this. But they're very useful tools when you're on defense and can help your partner get things right when they would otherwise be faced with a 50-50 guess.